It's really just a way to grab attention and get people to look in our direction long enough for us to give them a leaflet and explain the issue a little bit further.
Okay.
And get them to go home wondering, how is it that meat causes global warming, rather than wondering what's on television tonight, or what am I going to have for dinner tonight? Hey there. One of these? Thank you. Saying that power plants are the #1 cause of global warming is like saying that humans are the #1 cause of global warming. Power plants don't emit energy, don't create energy for the purpose of just creating energy for the sake of it. They create it for industries. And one of the industries that uses the most energy is factory farming.
Half an hour, Mr. Prescott.
All right. In the US, the meat industry uses about 1/3 of all the fossil fuels that we generate.
Headquarters of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, in short, PETA. They have almost 2 million members and are active worldwide.
I love this one as well.
Oh, yes.
This is very famous one. We've got this.
I suspect that for Al Gore and for a lot of other people, it's just too inconvenient of a truth. Gore was a politician and is beholden to a lot of industry people in many different industries, probably in the meat industry too. And while he certainly has done admirable work, it's disheartening, to say the least, that he has continued to ignore the fact that the meat he's eating every night for dinner is the #1 cause of global warming.
I'm Alicia Silverstone, and I'm a vegetarian. There's nothing in the world that's changed me as much as this. I feel so much better and have so much more energy. It's so amazing.
Prominent environmental group in the US called Environmental Defense, and they recently wrote on their website that if every American replaced chicken with vegetarian foods in just 1 meal per week, it'd be the equivalent in carbon dioxide of taking about 500,000 cars off of US roads.
Here in the United States, big is beautiful. This applies to the cars and definitely to the steaks. The average American eats 124 kilos of meat a year, 44 more kilos than the average Dutchman. At night, at the hotel, I watch a classic about American factory farming.
Here you go, Leo.
Psst. Leo.
Who are you? And how did you know my name?
I am Muphius, and I know a lot about you. Have you heard of the Matrix?
The Matrix?
Do you want to know what it is?
Okay.
The Matrix is all around you, Leo. It is the story we tell ourselves about where meat and animal products come from. This family farm is a fantasy. Take the blue pill and stay here in the fantasy. Take the red pill and I'll show you the truth. Welcome to the real world.
Wow! What is this horrible place?
This is a factory farm, Leo. Places like this are where most eggs, milk, and meat come from.
How did this happen?
I'll show you. In the mid-20th century, greedy agriculture corporations began modifying sustainable family farming to maximize their profits at great cost to both humans and animals. Factory farming was born. Animals are packed as closely together as possible. Most never see sunlight, touch ground, or get fresh air. Many can't even turn around. These cruel conditions cause fights and disease amongst the animals. To fix this, the corporate machine began systematic mutilations, practices such as debeaking chickens. And they started adding a constant dosage of antibiotics to their feed just to keep these poor wretches alive. This overuse of antibiotics breeds super strains of resistant disease-causing germs. Every day we get closer to an epidemic that cannot be stopped.
Ew! What's that smell?
12 million pounds of excrement. This pollutes the air and groundwater. That's why communities near factory farms often suffer from high levels of related sicknesses.
Well, it smells like shh.
And what's more, factory farming corporations have been destroying communities and mistreating their workers for decades. Since 1950, over 2 million small hog farms have disappeared. If they continue at this rate, there'll be no real independent family farms left. That is the Matrix, Leon. The lie we tell ourselves about where our food comes from. But it's not too late. There is a resistance.
Count me in.
Washington, city of politicians, policymakers, lobbyists and activists.
Think of the seals when you buy your meals! Boycott Canada!
Today, a demonstration against the seal hunt is held at the Canadian Embassy.
Think of the seals when you buy your meals! Boycott Canada!
This demonstration was organized by the Humane Society of the United States, America's largest animal welfare organization with 10 million members. 30 minutes later, I have an appointment on Capitol Hill with Wayne Purcell, the president of the Humane Society.
Hi.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hello there. Welcome to the United States. Welcome to Washington, our nation's capital.
Thank you.
And we're so proud of what you've accomplished in
Thank
Holland
you.
with your election. We all took note last November of how you were elected, and you're the first party for the animals in the world to achieve this.
True.
So thank you. And we
Thank
look
you.
forward to learning about what you've done.
Oh, okay. So nice to meet you finally. You're the biggest organization on animal welfare.
Yes, we are. We have 10 million supporters here in the United States in terms of paying supporters.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have millions more who believe in what we're doing, and we're here to organize that sentiment to achieve political reforms for animals, among doing other things. We try to pressure corporations to do the right thing, and we educate the public, and we do hands-on care of animals as well. But the political work here in Congress is very important.
Hi. Oh, good. You guys quit. 1, 2.
Factory farming is the biggest abuse of all, because in the United States alone, there are 10 billion animals raised for food. It's an extraordinary number, and the average American eats 80 or 85 animals per year. And we want to see that number reduced, and we want to see the animals out of these terrible confinement systems.
Why do you think Al Gore didn't mention factory farming?
You know, I think that he probably thought that he was giving a lot of information already to people with an inconvenient truth, and maybe he thought people would shut down if it affected them too personally. Because it gets very personal when you're talking about eating animals and you're talking about something that is part of the American diet. He thought, oh, well, this is going too far. But the public is slowly waking up. I do not believe that we can have a good situation for animals or the environment if we continue to eat as much meat as we are eating. But even if you reduce your total consumption by half, and instead of eating 80 animals, eat 40, you cut in half the greenhouse gas emissions. So we do think that our fork is a powerful tool.
So they're clear about this in the United States. The power lies with the consumer. As consumers, we can make a difference by changing our diets. Matt Prescott says that meat is the #1 cause of global warming, and he gives a good example of this. If every American ate no chicken for just 1 day a week, then this would reduce just as much pollution as taking 500,000 cars off the road. It's funny. Okay, I can hear you thinking, meat and other animal products are bad for the environment. I get it. But don't we need meat and milk for our health? Where else do we get the calcium for our bones, the iron for our blood, and the vitamins and minerals we need to keep us healthy? Advertisers and food producers have done so much to indoctrinate us that you nearly end up believing it.
Pints of lamb are only $1.99 a kilo.
The message is clear. Milk is essential, meat is good for you, cheese is healthy for us all. But who benefits most from meat and dairy products? The consumer or the producer? Do we really need all that animal protein?
Generally speaking, there's not a real problem for health if we have much lower meat consumption, and there are potential benefits. I mean, after all, colon cancer is one of the commonest cancers in high-income countries, and the risk of colon cancer is higher with high meat consumption. So there'll be a real benefit in terms of lowered colon cancer risk, for example. Going from our level of consumption to something that's just a bit below half of that would not involve any significant health harms and would almost certainly bring health benefits.
As you probably already guessed, I'm a vegetarian. I actually used to like eating meat quite a lot. But that was until around 12 years ago when I saw a Dutch TV documentary called What the Cow Wants. It contained some really bizarre footage.
Deze penskanule is een paar jaar geleden gemaakt. En daar kunnen koeien heel lang mee blijven leven. Soms wel meer dan 10 jaar. Dat is een gat met een diameter van een 10 centimeter. Daarin zit een siliconen ring met erin geklemd een deksel. Als ik nu druk, dan moet het mogelijk zijn om deze deksel naar binnen te drukken. Nu is die open. De deksel is eruit, kan eruit. En hier hebben we dus een gedeelte van de grassilage die het dier zojuist gegeten heeft.
When I saw this, for me, that was the very limit. Animal diseases, animal suffering, animals that were no longer treated as living beings. I had seen it all. And I thought, no, not in my name. I want no part in this anymore.
En zo kan het dekseltje er weer op.
In the factory farming industry, animals are adapted to the food that we choose to give them and to the massive stalls in which they are forced to live. They are mutilated, they are given antibiotics to stop them getting sick. Pigs are now sometimes even given anti-stress pills to help them cope with their unnatural living conditions. Yet the fact that it turns out that livestock makes an enormous contribution to greenhouse gas emissions by belching, farting and defecating doesn't necessarily mean that we'll start keeping fewer cows, pigs and chickens. No, the industry will simply dream up something new. Would you believe it? They now even make fist-sized pills to stop cows from farting so much. But you know, consumer resistance against factory farming is steadily growing due to the increasing awareness of animal suffering that it entails. And sometimes you come across people from an entire different background who surprise you. It was in America that I met a man who is known as the Mad Cowboy. He was a factory farmer who got out of the livestock industry and went vegetarian around the time of the mad cow disease crisis in Europe. Hi, nice to finally meet you.
Nice to see you're unlost again.
Yeah, finally, we made it.
My humble abode.
Thank you. Oh, it's nice and warm here.
This is on the farm, and This is one of the dogs we had, which was Sam, good critter. That's the farm. I'm a fourth-generation farmer, rancher, feedlot operator from Montana. At one time, I had 7,000 head of cattle, 12,000 acres of crop, and 30 employees. I spent 45 years of my life in production agriculture. Not something I learned from a book. I learned it by doing it. I was a factory farmer, the worst of all. Not a family farmer, but a factory farmer. Never met a chemical I didn't like. We'd actually grind up animals and feed them back to our animals. Had all of the bad habits.
What are you doing here?
Branding.
Oh.
See there? I've branded hundreds of thousands of animals.
It's still allowed? It's still allowed in America?
Absolutely. 1979, I ended up paralyzed from the waist down. Doctor told me I had a tumor on my spinal cord. He said if that tumor's on the inside of the cord, you have less than 1 chance in a million you will ever walk again. Made me stop and think for the first time in my life that I was part of the problem, not part of the solution. I saw the birds die, I saw the trees die, I saw the soil changed. And it was not until I was paralyzed that I was willing to admit that I was the problem. I ended up with a 1 in a million operation. I've walked out of the hospital with a 1 in a million operation, but I walked out a much different individual than I walked in. I knew that what we were doing was wrong, was absolutely, totally non-sustainable. Here's a scone that my wife made. Try that. Vegan. Everything in the house is vegan.
Yeah.
There's no animal products in anything that we have here.
Oh, and it tastes good.
Everybody thought the same way. It was mass hysteria. Everybody was doing it. It must be okay. You started from the time you were a child. And can you imagine what it was like when I first asked myself the question, should we be eating animals? It was one of the most thought-provoking questions I ever had in my life, because I had never even considered that. No. And when you stop and think about it, it is so straightforward and open. Should we eat animals? Absolutely not. Do we need them for protein? Absolutely not. Are they good for us? Absolutely not. Do they enjoy us eating them? Absolutely not. My hometown newspaper put my picture in the front page, and it said, Montana's most famous vegetarian. I picked up the phone and I called him up and I said, why don't you tell it the way it is? Montana's only vegetarian. And they said, no, we have one of you kind of guys here at the paper, so we know there are two. But people don't want to believe that somebody that from the inside of the industry, that when you look at it, the one thing when I debate the issue with somebody from the industry, their common defense is, oh, well, you don't understand. I spent 45 years of my life there. There's nothing that they have done that I haven't done more of it. I've milked more cows, I've slopped more pigs, I've fed more animals, and when they tell me I don't understand, I understand. And what I understand is what we're doing is wrong, it's non-sustainable, it's not good for us, it's not good for the animals, it's not good for the planet. The sooner we stop what we are doing, the better will all be.
Did you also notice that there are more women vegan or vegetarian than men?
Well, yeah. You know why?
Tell me why.
They're smarter.
Ah.
Yeah. Do you know why women live longer than men?
Tell me.
Because men have to live with women. You know, what I did is I went out on the road and I started talking to people. I traveled about 100,000 miles a year. It was not unusual for me to do 3 or 4 lectures a day. Some of the groups were large, some of them were small. The largest group I ever talked to was 40,000. The smallest was 2. We should never count the crowd. You never know how many people that are there are going to get the information. My job was not to save the world. My job was to do everything that I could do so people would make better choices. And I've done that now for over 20 years. And I think that when I had the opportunity, I was able to change the way a lot of people thought. Was it going to be enough? I don't know. But I did what I could.
Do you think there are more vegetarians now?
Oh, sure. You know, my hometown actually had a vegan restaurant. Isn't that amazing? The man that gets the Nobel Prize for the film on global warming neglects the #1 cause of global greenhouse gases? Does that give you some idea of the power of the industry? That a man that was out there to change the world on global greenhouse gases, do you think he did not know about it? Or was he just unwilling to stand up to the power that they had? When I went on the Oprah show and I told a few million people that we were grinding up cows and feeding cows, they sued Oprah, Harpo Production, and myself for 6 years in court. Cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to protect ourselves for telling the truth.
My reaction is that free speech not only lives, it rocks.
Maybe Al Gore was worried about the power of the industry, or maybe he was self-serving because he actually raises cattle himself. And if you look at Al, since he left office, there's no doubt in my mind that he's eating well too many of them. If there's something you would like that you don't see, I'll get it for you. No salt or pepper.
No, that's fine. What was your favorite meat product when you were?
Hamburger.
Hamburger? You ate a lot of hamburgers?
Yep. The best meal in the world was pork and beans, potato salad, and hamburger. I could eat that 3 times a day, every day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Didn't make any difference.
Really?
Loved it. Turned out okay.
Why so, not say it turned out great?
Well, if my wife cooked it, it'd been better. But it just goes to show that if an old cattle farmer can do this, anybody can do it. It's just a matter of time. It doesn't mean that we should slack off on what we're doing. But if we do everything we have the capability of doing, we will win. There's no doubt in my mind.
The FAO has made some very interesting calculations. Between 1950 and the year 2000, the world population grew from 2.6 billion to 6 billion people. Yet meat production increased fivefold, from 45 to 233 billion kilos of meat each year. It's predicted that there will be 9 billion people living on our planet by the year 2050. And what will happen with the meat production? The meat production will double to 450 billion kilos of meat by the year 2050. And of course, the greenhouse gas emissions will double too. And I'm talking about kilos of meat every time, but of course we are talking about living and breathing animals.
In a lifetime, the average European will eat 7 sheep, 24 rabbits, 43 turkeys, 789 fish, a third of a horse, 5 cows, 42 pigs, and 900 chickens.
So the average European devours 1,800 animals in a lifetime. If every person on our planet